We're at that time of year where we don't know where we are, like legitimately. We know it's not Christmas Day. We know it's not Boxing Day. It hasn't changed over to a new year yet. And so I don't know if you're like me, but you're just wondering, is it a Wednesday? Is it a Tuesday? Hello, Sunday? I don't know where I am. And it feels appropriate to sometimes not know where you are, because on this episode, I want to talk to you about breakout candidates for your fantasy footy side in 2026. It's players that maybe you don't know where they're going to break out from, roles that may evolve, players that have shown pedigree in spurts previously, but genuinely have yet to become premium options. This episode, we're looking at 10 breakout candidates for your 2026 fantasy footy year. No, this is not just limited to classic or to draft. I won't be talking specifically about price points and ADPs. Rather, it's just putting 10 players on the radar that haven't broken out yet. So yeah, I'm not using that garbage. Well, they're priced at this and they previously averaged 172. I'm not doing that. It's players that have not yet hit premium territories, but could in 2026. Let's kick it off with Cam Mackenzie as my first option. A little wild, I know, but let me talk you through the thought process here. A spot has opened up inside this Hawthorn midfield with the departure of James Worpel as a free agent move down to Geelong. Now, I know the Hawks aren't the most dominant fantasy or SuperCoach scoring side, to say to the least, and if and when they do get big jarring scores, it's generally through the likes of a Day, a Sicily, Newcomb, Moore. These are the candidates that kind of get them there. But I think there's a world where Cam Mackenzie really elevates himself to what made him get so highly touted and so early selected in his draft year. It got a really nice turn of pace about him, got some really clean hands. There's just some good running capacities about him too that does sit inside this Hawthorn game pretty well. Now, there's no set of monsters that he's hit, but it's a combination of, we've seen some pedigree. There's some 80s and 90s, including at the start of this year, including a SuperCoach done in the early parts of the 2025 season. I just think there's enough there to suggest that he's going to present some really nice value, and I think he could break out for us in 2026. Next target I want to put on your radar for you is Harvey Langford. He'll rightfully get a lot more love in the fantasy footy community throughout this preseason, and certainly way more than what Cam Mackenzie is going to get. But Harvey is a rare talent, a top 5 in just about every category you could possibly want a player to be in their first season from a rising star component. He was exceptional. The score involvements, meters gains, disposals, disposal efficiency, just everything you want to see from a player that got limited inside midfield opportunity. This could be it. Now, a second-year breakout is rarefied air, but it's not impossible. Early days over the last decade, we've seen guys like Nat Fyfe, Marcus Bontempelli, Clayton Oliver will do it. More recently, Nick Dacos, Harry Sheezel. So it's challenging to do as a second-year player, but you need a lot of variables to go right. You need to be the right type of player in the right type of ecosystem, and the game styles start to function around you. And I look at this Melbourne team, and they should rightfully be building the future around him. No Petrarca, no Oliver creates big chasms in their midfield. Yes, Steele in, that's going to fix a little bit of it. But I can see Harvey really elevating his game with more inside midfield opportunities. He's a powerfully built midfielder. He's got an absolute weapon of a left foot kick. And when he does go forward, he is a difficult matchup. I like him. I don't know if he'll hit the dizzying heights, but I think he absolutely sits in the category as a breakout candidate for us in 2025. Well, 26. The year's almost done. Is it done? I don't know where it's done. What day is it today? Comment below and let me know. Next option I want to talk to you about is Colby McKercher. This feels like some low-hanging fruit, but I'm not opposed to that. Defensive eligible for us across your draft and your salary cap formats. Honestly, his breakout is all contingent on his role. If he gets that kind of weird hybrid, sometimes wing, sometimes inside mid, sometimes high half forward role that he saw in the early part of the 25 season, it ain't going to happen. But if he gets the function that he's been training in the first phase of the preseason and to what we saw at the back half of the 25 season, then it could be on it. From the middle of the bye rounds onwards, so that final 12 games of the year, here's what he's dishing up for us. An AFL fantasy average of 94.6, and he hits triple digits in SuperCoach in that kick-in kind of core rebounder playmaker role. If he's got that, it is on. Now, this crazy thing is, so much of the community is already locked into Colby, and I agree with the narrative of why, but it probably means in Classic, you're not going to be as island as you might hope to be as a player of his potential. And certainly I don't think his ADP, his average draft position, by the way, that's what ADP stands for, is going to give anywhere near the level of value based on return. I think rather you're probably going to pay for what he'll be rather than getting the value out of him. Just such is the love in the fantasy footy community for him as we head into this upcoming season. And like I said, I think it's fairly well grounded for what it is. Let's give you another breakout candidate, Sid Draper. Again, I know I've just talked about how rare it is for second-year players to hit the dizzying heights, but I think he sits into this spot because, again, you're looking for a player with pedigree, a player with those junior numbers, and sitting inside a team that could really do with a player whose skill set. And I think for Adelaide, Sid Draper, they're probably putting a little bit of chips in on where and why they were so perceived to be inactive during the trade period. They clearly think between him, maybe a little bit of Rankin, Shelley, they think they can get a little bit more support into this midfield unit. Because honestly, the Crows' problem last year, and while it might have been a little bit through finals, it wasn't getting first hands on the ball, winning contested possessions, getting a decent clip of clearance win rate. That's not a huge issue for them. It was what happened from then. They were fine. They're strong in contested possession, but rather it's the transition part of the game. They are in worlds of troubles. In all transition kind of statistical areas that I could track, they're below the AFL average. Now, yes, I know that's partially game style, that they're a little bit more contested, but when you're that far below, it does create those moments that Adelaide had a lot last year, which was kind of stuck and just couldn't get the ball out of D50 cleanly and smoothly enough. Rather, they had to win the ball at a centre clearance moment, and then off and on they go. So I think from a Crows perspective, they're looking at him and going, he can kind of fast track a little bit of this midfield need. He's got some speed. He's got clean hands. His work rate is unbelievable. And the Crom have given us some second-year breakouts before. Dan Curtin, anybody? Just saying. Now, he didn't leap pay out to be a premium second-year breakout, but gave value for coaches in Classic and value for coaches on draft. And I think that Sid might just sit in that same level of conversation. Well, a couple of players down. So McKenzie, Langford, McKercher, Draper. I'll give you one more before I want to tell you something really important, and then I'll hit you with my last couple. Jasper Fletcher is the next name in the mix that I think could break out for us in 2026. Took some pretty sizable steps last year to continue this dominance of the Brisbane Lions. And there's 6 tons for AFL Fantasy last season, 4 in SuperCoach. But there's a stretch of games that really caught my attention. From rounds 4 to 13 last year, he goes at an average of 87 in Fantasy and just a clip below 93 in SuperCoach. Now, again, these aren't, I've got to get him and start him in my salary cap side. He's unbelievable value. No. I'm not saying that. I just think he could break out and elevate himself to the next level and become a very, very fieldable option in draft that gives you great return and also can knock on the door of premium territories. I think he could break out to that. The big uncertainty here is what is a fit Tom Doedee and Kadeen Coleman do to this defensive unit, if anything, and to go alongside that, what is the market share of ball and the positional implications for a Jasper Fletcher? He's inside their best unit without question, but does he move higher up to the wing? Does he play a more secondary defensive rebound role? So much is unknown, but he deserves to be on the breakout candidates list. 5 down, 5 more to go. Before I tell you my final 5 breakout options, I want to let you know that we are just days away from kicking off our 50 most relevant preseason episodes. Yeah, from January 1, and for the 50 days to go alongside it, we're counting down one player per day with a video and an audio episode, an article at coachespanel.tv, and it's a chance for you to unpack with me who I believe are the most relevant players across all fantasy formats that we need to consider and have a conversation about this preseason. If you've never done a preseason with us, friend, you are in for a treat. It is like getting to watch The Office for the first time ever. It's one of the favorite things that we have really ever that the Coaches Panel have produced. We'll be collaborating with some of your favorite content creators across all your SuperCoach, AFL Fantasy, your draft formats. You do not want to miss this series. We kick off, I'll give you a clue. Here's a clue. We kick off with a breakout candidate. I deliberately didn't put him into this listing, but we kick off with a breakout candidate. There you go. If you made it this far through the video and you're holding on, you've got a little bit of a sneaky kind of look to know what's happening there. So that's all I'm telling you. A breakout candidate starts the 50 most relevant January 1. I'm back on deck. Mini Monk has got the first episode in, so looking forward to sharing that one with you. So you're 5 in? 5 down? Do you want 5 more? All right, let's give you 5 more. Sam Banks is who I want to talk to you about. Defensive eligible. His final 15 games of the 25 season were exceptional. He went at 89 in fantasy, 88 in SuperCoach. It's around about 8 to 10 points per game above what his seasonal average was. Again, might not be enough to scream, pick me in Classic, but there's enough upside here that I think he can elevate to become a premium option for us in time. 5 AFL fantasy tons last year, 4 in SuperCoach, got a 120 in each of those 2 formats. The big thing that's going to help Sam's elevation here is around who and how and when do they hand over the keys of the transition game for Richmond fully into his hands, and do they take them out of a Jaden Short? Or, this could be scary, does it go into a youngster like a Sam Grill? Now, I think he's going to be more likely across the wings, but it's a world of possibilities that this may happen. But if, and this is why he sits at a breakout candidate, Jaden Short, who's turning 30 before the season starts, if Uze hands the keys of this defensive rebound role completely into Banks's hand, then a mid-90s average across formats could be well and truly his for the taking. Want another player? Let's go a little bit more outside the box here. Mid-forward eligible for you, Darcy Wilson is the name I want to give you. He regressed a bunch in terms of just a bit of form, a bit of role fluidity last year. So his average dip back from 2025 from what he did in his debut year of 2024. But if you remember early days, and it's probably more Classic owners and Keeper League owners that really fondly look at this, he was dishing up some 80s and 90s and even some triple-digit scores. The thing that's got me excited about this for Darcy is it oftentimes, not always, but often, second-year blues is quite a common feature for players in the AFL. Where I wouldn't say it's regression, but it's just getting that conditioning and that expectation in and out of their body to perform at maximum levels every single week. It takes a toll on them, that full preseason. It takes time to be able to be at your best in the AFL system. It's why it takes 3, 4, 5 years sometimes for players to hit premium territories. There's always unicorns. Nick Dacos, I'm looking at you, but I think for Darcy, there's some real positive signs. The midfield mix at St Kilda last year was off and weird. Steele was in and then he wasn't. Phillippo was fit and then he wasn't. Was it Windhager? Zach Jones got in the mix of that. Jack McRae started the year in it, then he fell out of it. It was a weird time to be a little bit on the Saints train. I feel like they're a little bit more defined heading into this new year. Now, health is always a premise that sits there, but Nasiah Wanganeen-Miller really emerged as one of the best players in the AFL. He'll play predominantly through the midfield. They've recruited well in Sam Flanders, who came for the role to play in that inside midfield role that he will get. And if Mateus Phillippo can stay fit and healthy, they've got this beautiful mix of powerful, accumulating, silky skilled combination, then well supported by something a bit more defensively minded in Marcus Windhager. And then I think these 4 elements mean an outside and more transition player like Darcy Wilson off those wings and off those flanks can really impact the game really well when there's greater level, greater control and greater consistency of the ball being in the Saints' hands. I think that's a good sign. So to me, I'm happy to put Darcy in that breakout conversation. Sam Lawler is my next name on the board. Yes, I've talked a couple of second-year players in Langford and Draper. So, maybe if I keep having enough throws at the stumps, eventually I'll hit once, right? But there's just something about Sam. I'll be honest, I was like, oh, yeah, he's a nice player. He's this, he's that. But before I kind of got a chance to really dig in and watch him last season, I was like, oh, yeah, he's a strong, powerfully built mid-forward. He'll do great at the AFL level. I wasn't really excited by it like some of my Richmond friends were. But then I watched him last year, and it's off a limited sample size, like 11 games, and some of those are injury impacted. But there's just moments in games where you just see him completely control the tempo. Clean hands, smart user, powerful, a nice turn of speed. And there was some accumulation about how he got the ball too that kind of got me more excited that he's not just going to be a impact per possession guy, but there's a bit of accumulation about this guy. So I like this one. Now, it's not always that it happens, but I feel like this could be one of those guys that just really snaps in the best way possible for us inside the fantasy community. So I'm going to put him in that spot. 2 more to go. You ready for them? Let's see if I've got any that you've got in there. Bailey Humphrey is the next and the second last name I want to put on the mix. Seasonal average in the high 60s in AFL Fantasy in the 25 season, high 70s in SuperCoach. But inside those numbers, I think is what's got people like myself a little bit intrigued and interested that there could be a breakout on the horizon. 3 AFL Fantasy tons last year. SuperCoach is certainly where he's more favoured at the moment with that impact per touch and what he's doing with the ball at the moment. There's 5 SuperCoach tons, including a couple of 120 plus scores. The challenge for Bailey here is there was already a midfield opportunity squeeze happening already. And that was before Christian Petrarca arrived. Now, I know Sam Flanders could barely get in last year, and so some might say, well, Flanders out, Petrarca in, problem solved. But politely, Petrarca right now is a more impactful player than what Flanders currently is. In a few years' time, let's have that conversation. But there's even less probability that he's going to crack into this midfield that really already has a pretty high market share. Like Raul, Anderson, Miller already have so much of the ball funneling through those 3, let alone now you throw in a Norm Smith medalist. It does feel like Humphrey's 5th banana coming through there, and they've got some ripping kids over the last couple of drafts that they'll want to retain and give some midfield moments to as well. So what is that market share of ball? I'm a little concerned about how it could pop for Bailey, but if it breaks right, and that's all the premise of this is they could break out in 2026. If the variable of some more inside midfield opportunities happens and lands for Bailey, it could be on. Remember, he was trying to bang the door to get out, whether you believe it was for more midfield time, getting back home to Victoria, getting more money, whatever you think or care it was. It's never really been too publicly talked about. I do think the Suns know they need to and want to retain this talent, and it'll be interesting to see how and if they integrate him into the midfield a little more. If he does, I am interested because remember, he's got forward eligibility for us this year. So he's not having a breakout to become a mid-premium. He's just having a breakout to get that 90 territory for us. And all of a sudden, happy days on Draft and Classic, you're away. One last one I want to throw in the mix for you. Nick Bryan is the last breakout candidate for 2026 I want to put on the radar. It really is coming out of the basis of opportunity knocking on the door. There's no Draper. He's now at Brisbane. There's no Goldstein. He's now a coach at Essendon. And he's, I think, their best ruck option. Now, some might say it's Vicentini. I'm not as convinced by that, but let's see how the preseason holds out. But the reality is I just don't have anything that's got that ruck craft just yet. The challenge for Nick here isn't so much the competition that he'd previously held. It's now that because he did his ACL in April, he's touch and go to start the season. And so I can understand why in Classic, you're a little bit scared off. In Draft, you're probably thinking a little bit later for him now. But there's some merit here to this pick. No pun intended. I like this outcome and option because he's shown what he can do at limited time and opportunities in AFL. I've liked what I've seen from him in the VFL. And I just think Nick Bryan is the type of ruckman that can score well in the modern day of fantasy football. I like it. I think he's touch and go to start the year due to just recovering from that ACL injury that he's had. But to me, Nick Bryan definitely deserves to be in the conversation. If he can get himself fit and healthy to start the year, he definitely could be someone that could be a real breakout option and deliver incredible value based on what you're paying at either a salary cap classic point or from an ADP perspective in your draft day. That's it. Those are my 10 breakout options that I would like to present to you in that somewhere vein between it's not quite Christmas, it's not quite New Year, I don't know where I am, I don't know what I am, but it's here for the taking. What I'd love to know from you, though, give me give me 3 of your best breakout candidates that you're looking at for the start of 2026 going, yeah, I think this guy's going to break out. Why don't you comment below and let me know who are the 3 best breakout candidates that you can see are going to happen this upcoming season. I cannot wait to see the players and the names that you drop in the comments section below. If you're loving the videos that we're doing like this, the good news is they're going to drop every single day from January 1 until the season starts in March. Yeah, we've got a ton of great stuff coming, including the 50 most relevant that I've already told you about, which starts January 1. So if you love your SuperCoach, you love your AFL Fantasy, you love your draft platforms, we have you covered. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, like this video. It's 2 very small things that you can do that make 2 big impacts for us here at the Coaches Panel. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. There's a ton of other content you can go back and check out that is already on this channel as well. But we cannot wait to be with you on January 1 when we kick off the 50 most relevant for the 2026 season.